Hey guys, I'm Tim Howie, Senior Pastor of Grace Church, and I want to share a message with our friends and our family. This has been a real challenging season, the season of COVID-19 for our society. And our staff and our leaders have been planning on the process of reopening, what it would look like in the process of phasing in a reopening that is socially distant. And so I wanted to share some of those plans with you. But frankly, this is a topic where there is some high stakes and high emotions. And there's a lot of factors that are very legitimate going into people's perspective. There's strong perspectives on this. There's people with legitimate health concerns out there. There's people with legitimate economic concerns. People with legitimate concerns about freedoms, liberties. People who look at Scripture and have legitimate concerns. Is our society following Scripture? And so the very most important part of this talk is going to be at the end. I want you to write down Romans 14, bookmark it. This is going to be our Christian playbook over the next several weeks, months, on how do we treat people who we strongly disagree with. It's the most important thing I'm going to say. So I'm going to walk through our reopening phases and sketch out the high level of what's going on. I'm not going to give every single detail. You can find that at visitgracechurch.com/reopen. So you can bookmark that, visitgracechurch.com/reopen. I'm going to walk you through the 4 phases. So phase 1 of our reopening plan starts this weekend. That's church in homes. Church in homes. Now notice, I didn't say church at home. We've all been doing that for several weeks now. Church in homes is under socially distant guidelines, gathering 10 or less in your home to actually do worship. Jesus says where 2 or 3 are gathered together, there he is in our midst. And so we're encouraging our church, if you feel comfortable, to gather your friends, gather your grace group, gather your neighbors, 10 or less in a socially distant manner, and worship online together. Phase 1, church in homes. Let's talk about phase 2. Phase 2 is when our facilities reopen. And we are targeting Memorial Day weekend, that Saturday and Sunday weekend, in our timeline. So there's several changes you're going to see with Grace Church when our facilities reopen. First of all, we're having an RSVP system online where we open up the seats. You can reserve your seats for free starting Tuesdays at noon for the following weekend. You might set an alarm right now, Tuesday at noon, to jump online and reserve your seats for that following weekend. You're going to see our volunteers and our staffers, that group. We're going to have masks on required for them in this season. We're going to maintain social distancing. And those with individuals with special needs, we're going to have a sensory-friendly room open. But we're not going to have Grace Kids Ministry yet. We're not going to have a cafe yet. And after our service is over at each of our campuses, we're going to empty that area as quickly as possible because we have some significant cleaning and sanitizing to do. Okay. An update on our Olathe campus. Obviously, the schools are closed right now, so we can't meet at Prairie Creek Elementary. We've reserved Heritage Park, shelters 9 and 10. We've reserved those for the next several weeks through the summer to gather at. But we're still looking for other locations. So if you know a location that our Olathe campus could meet at in Olathe, let our campus pastor Brian Gann know about that. We want to know. Also, for our Grace students, I haven't mentioned them yet, they're going to follow the protocols of our weekend worship. They're starting out Wednesday, June 3rd. The only exception is they're not going to do an RSVP system. We have enough space to maintain social distancing. Okay, that's phase 2. Our facilities, our campuses reopen. Let's talk about phase 3. Phase 3 looks a lot like phase 2. This is where ministries are starting to expand during phase 3. There's a few exceptions, a few changes. First of all, we're going to actually make our masks voluntary, optional for our volunteers and staffers during phase 3. Our Grace Kids Elementary Division will be open at that point. Our Grace Special Needs Ministry will work with families, customizing who would like a buddy for their individual special needs. And our Grace Cafes will reopen, but not with the self-serve stations. That's phase 3. Ministries expand. Finally, phase 4 is the phase out phase. And so that's, honestly, we have sketched out plans. We need additional guidance. We expect additional guidance in phase 4, the phase out phase. And so you'll notice on our plans at visitgracechurch.com/reopen, they're there, but we're holding them very loosely when we find out the guidance from our government. Okay, the most important thing I'm going to talk about now is Romans chapter 14. If you have a Bible, please turn to Romans chapter 14, grab your phone. Romans 14, verse 2. This is the Christian's playbook for how we treat others who we strongly disagree with. So in Romans 14, Paul tells the story of two different sets of issues. One set of issues is how people treat holidays. Paul says, some people treat holidays as very, very special. Easter and Christmas, the weekend, is different than other days. And he says they're strongly persuaded that that is the right perspective. Other people treat every day the same. What's the big deal with Christmas or Easter or any other day of the week? Isn't every day equally important? And Paul says, you don't have to change your perspective, your convictions, but don't look down on people with a different conviction from a different framework. He talks about food. He says some people, out of conviction, are vegetarians, vegans. Others, out of their convictions, eat everything, anything. He says we shouldn't look down or judge each other with these different perspectives. Romans chapter 14, in verse 2, Paul addresses these issues. And he says this, Romans 14 and verse 2. He says, for one who believes he may eat all things, but he who is weak eats only vegetables. Let not him who has one perspective despise him who does not have that perspective. Let not him who does not judge him who does, for God has received him. Paul points out the two issues, the wrong perspective, how you treat others, despising them, judging them. Notice in Romans 14, he does not tell people they have to change their perspective, change their convictions. He says, keep your convictions. At the same time, to honor others who have a different perspective. Not to hate them, not to despise them, not to think, how in the world could you even believe that? That's terrible. And yet, at the same time, not saying you have to change one thing. Guys, Jesus said that the way the world knows that we're his disciples is how we treat each other. If we love each other, if they see a difference, they'll be drawn to Christ in us. If they see us hating each other, judging each other, criticizing each other, they're not drawn. There's no difference. That's what the world does. So I'm calling on every single gracer to live out the values of Romans chapter 14, of honoring those with a different perspective, yet not changing your perspective at all, and not judging people with different perspectives. This is vital at this time. It's the most important thing in this transition. So guys, let's talk about it's not going to change. Through it all, we are going to continue to minister to our community. We are going to continue to partner with our local and global partners. We're going to continue our vision of helping everyone become an outward-focused follower of Jesus. God has called us to love God, love our neighbors, and make disciples here and around the world. That is our calling. I want you to know I love you. I'm praying for you every day. Let's live out Christ's values in this world.